Hey guys, Get Creep here, and happy Halloween. Today we're gonna be looking at something very near and dear to my heart, and that is going to be my favorite pair of night vision goggles. October is really the witching hour for night vision users. The sun starts setting a little bit earlier, so you got more time to do all of your nighttime activities. But for Halloween, I thought it'd be really fitting to look at my favorite pair of night vision goggles, and that's going to be the PVS-5 Alphas. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. But before we go any further, I do want to thank our gracious sponsor of this video, which is Venture Surplus. Now, no, they don't have any PVS-5 Alphas in stock right now, but one day they may, because they get a lot of really cool stuff coming in and out of stock. So definitely keep checking on their website, follow them on Instagram. They have everything from Cry all the way to just your standard run-of-the-mill BDU type stuff. Now, I'm actually currently wearing a pair of the really awesome proper BDU 2.0 pants. I already did a video on these things and I told you I love them. And you know, of course they come in woodland, so I had to rock those for this video. If they have any M65s, field jacket liners, or Whoopee hoodies in stock, definitely grab those too, because it is getting a little chilly. And be sure to use discount code KITCREEP at checkout for 10% off your entire order. I also want to give a huge thank you to Zulu 24 Airsoft for allowing us to use their facilities here. They have the best airsoft field in the Northeast. I've been coming here for years, and it's the best place to test out all your new kit. Also check out Zulu Outdoor, which is their on-site shop. They have all of your airsoft needs as well as an online site. They also have, in my opinion, the best airsoft tech out there right now. So make sure you show them some love. So thank you again, and let's get back to the 5 Alphas. So the PVS-5s really were the first practical night vision goggle used by US ground troops and aviation. Compared to earlier night vision devices, these things have a far superior detection range as well as battery life. The Generation 2 PVS-5 Alphas were developed to replace the SU-50 Generation 1 night vision goggles. Documented usage of these things is very limited, but you can see these being used during Operation Eagle Claw back in the 1980s in Iran, as well as being used by pilots before they were replaced by the Anvis 6 night vision goggle. They have a very unique and quirky design. I think that's why they have a cult following, and they're also loved by costume designers. Now, these things actually have a pretty bad rap in the night vision world, and I think it's a little undeserved. I think that these things really need a little bit more respect on their name because they are famous. These things have been featured in games like Call of Duty, the movie Stargate, and of course, Ghostbusters as the famous Ecto-goggles.
Get out of here, you spooky ghost. Ah, fuck!
Now, if you don't have Gen 2 night vision, you might be under the fallacy that it's bad. But just because we have better things like Gen 3 doesn't mean they're actually bad. They're actually more than usable. It's really not a matter of quality, it's really just a matter of light amplification. That is the biggest jump in technological advancement between each generation. So on a beautiful super moonlit night like last night and tonight, these things look almost Gen 3 quality. However, once you do start getting into those low light areas, if you're in the woods with a nice canopy over you, or if you're inside of a dark building, that's where you really start to see these things struggle and Gen 3 starts to shine, right? Literally. So from the documentation that I've read, these things have a 50-meter detection range under starlight and a 150-meter detection range under moonlight. And from what I can tell you, you could probably see a lot further under ideal clear skies, full moon. However, you're not always going to be under ideal conditions. So I wouldn't base something off of the most perfect night like I had last night where I got some really awesome photos and videos. And again, the quality is really not the issue. I think the biggest issue with these goggles is really the housing. These things are really just a standalone night vision goggle, and they use a harness that goes around your head, so it's basically just a permanent skull crusher. And I'll tell you what, they're not very comfy at all. I mean, before when I was filming, wearing it underneath this helmet, it was a pain, and I literally felt it cutting off the circulation to my head. And they're also not designed to really go over your helmet while in use. It's really just meant to be stowed on top of the helmet. But wearing something like a Pasget helmet or an M1 helmet way back when, it just does not feel good because this chin strap just wants to make it drop forward. So this is really something that you want to use under a helmet. And that also really stinks because the only way to remove these is to then remove your helmet and then remove your night vision goggles. So certainly not as easy and user-friendly as the night vision setups that we have nowadays with all these fancy Wilcox and Neurotos mounts. Now, I don't think that these are bad night vision devices, but they really have made me appreciate the technology that we have now, whether it be the technology inside of the tubes or the housing design, and then especially the night vision mounting solutions like your Wilcoxes and Neurotos mounts. We've really come a long way since these things. And not only have these made me appreciate what I have now, but they also made me appreciate where we came from. I think these things are just so super cool and a really neat piece of history. So speaking of the housing, there are a couple of other mounting solutions for these, but it's not as easy as just swapping out a J-arm. It requires some craftsmanship, maybe a trip to Michael's. One alternative to mounting these things is going to be the MFP or the modified faceplate. The modified faceplate is exactly what it sounds like. It is taking the face hugger goggle that we have here and literally cutting away at it. And that allows us to take something like this V strap that I have here and allows you to Velcro it onto your helmet and then button snap it onto the housing. And yes, this housing literally uses button snaps to mount the head harness, which is just insane. I'm sure most of you watching are cringing right now, but I promise you, they're cool. They're cool. There's a really good video on YouTube where the guy details how to set up your PVS-5s and mount them to your helmet in that configuration. So definitely go check that out if you're interested. The other more well-known way to mount these is going to be the Lytton cob mount. So that essentially takes them out of the plastic face hugger housing and kind of turns them into more of like an Anvis style setup. It takes these little binos out of this big plastic housing and it gives you a ball detent mount so that you can actually use them like a modern night vision goggle. Now, one of the reasons that these things got such a bad rap was because of a feature that they had in which they would cut off the power when exposed to high light. Now, with something like a modern night vision goggle, we know that these things have AutoGating, which allows them to reduce or increase the gain based on ambient light conditions. And that is in an effort to preserve the tube because, as you know, you can blem your tube if you point it at a bright enough light for an extended period of time. The much more rudimentary way of doing it is completely shutting off power to the unit instead of just dimming. That's a lot more advanced technology. And I think you can imagine why that wouldn't be so good for a helicopter pilot, right? If you're flying a helicopter and a spotlight comes on and your night vision completely shuts off and you've got this really messed up way of having it mounted and it's just not easy to flip up, it can probably cause some problems. I probably wouldn't want to fly in that helicopter. However, from what I understand, I do believe that that was only a feature on the PVS-5 Charlies. I think I have noticed on these PVS-5 Alphas a little bit of like an auto-gating feature where when I throw on like the nav light in a dark room, I do see them kind of dim a little bit. So like I said, we do have a binocular setup. We have very small, very thin objective lenses here. But up front, it's a little quirky, all right? So we have both our ocular and our objective adjustments at the front. And the reason is because once this is on your face, you can't adjust from the rear. So they have to extend it up to where the objective lens is. So the objective is adjusted via this little ribbed part. Staying at the front, we do have an IR nav light, which I think is really cool. We do have a little adjustment here that is going to adjust the interpupillary distance between the binoculars, which is great. Some people's eyes are just too far apart, you know? We are also able to adjust the cant and the tilt of the device. That way, depending on your face shape, again, you can adjust them more easily. This thing does run off of either 2 AA batteries or one BA5567A/U lithium battery. So if you have any of those lying around, you can definitely run these off of a single one of these. And then, of course, the harness is adjustable. It's very similar to something like a skull crusher, a very old skull crusher. The switch on the bottom that turns it on off, and as well as, you know, turning on the IR illuminator, it's very similar to a PVS-14, right? Or a PVS-7. And it's just really cool to see the genesis of what we have now. Now, inside of the goggle, we see there's a ton of wiring, and it's just really spooky in there. And I feel like, you know, one wrong move, I might just like literally cut the cord on these things. But we do have a pad back here that's removable. It's got little button snaps again on the inside there, but aside from that, you really shouldn't be touching anything on the inside, honestly. And also we do have a necklace here. That way when you take them off, you can hang them around your neck. Very similar to something like the PVS-7s did before they actually had the, you know, flip up rhino mounts. They just had the original skull crusher where you had to clip it on, take it off, hang it around your neck. So the PVS-5s are a binocular design, but they're Gen 2. But the PVS-5s were later replaced in the 80s by the PVS-7s, which are a biocular design, which means you have one objective lens and then two ocular lenses. So the tube, the single tube that's inside of here, that image is going to be split between both of your eyes. So both your eyes are seeing the same image. And, you know, people complain a lot about how they have really bad depth perception and they act like these are unusable. So would you rather have Gen 2 binoculars or Gen 3 bioculars? And of course, my choice would definitely be the biocular, because just because it's older, just because we have better stuff now, doesn't mean it's unusable. A biocular PVS-7 in Gen 3 can absolutely go toe-to-toe with, say, a mono or bino Gen 3, all right? So when people tell you, don't buy that, save up your money for something better, they are trying to help you. I certainly think it's a good idea to save your money for the best thing that you can, you know, feasibly afford. Honestly, these things, they do very well. They're really good as a loaner because typically whoever I hand these off to hasn't used Gen 3 before and they haven't been spoiled. But I will say it is hard to go from Gen 3 back to Gen 2 unless there's a literal supermoon. My personal experience with the PVS-5 Alphas. I've had this set since 2018. And I don't know if I should tell you what I got them for back then, but it was pretty cheap. So having gotten these in 2018, I've had a lot of experience with them. What I can tell you as someone who is both a Gen 2 and a Gen 3 user, I'm gonna tell you right now, these are not just as good. It doesn't matter if you've got Gen 2 plus, it's not really a thing. It's just the next generation of stuff is better. But it doesn't make these unusable, doesn't make these garbage. These things, by all means, are still a really nice set of night vision. It's just a matter of, would you rather get these or save up your money for something a little bit better, more user-friendly, and with better light amplification? I did take these to an airsoft night game one time because I just wanted to test them out and I wanted to see how they stacked up against Gen 3. And I'll tell you right now, they don't. They really don't. They were still perfectly capable of seeing some reflections off of people's gear, off of their lenses. And the other thing is, these still work with IR lasers. So if you have an IR weapon light or a night vision compatible optic, these things work, and they are binos. These things will absolutely passive aim. So because these do not amplify light as well as something like a Gen 3 device, you're gonna need a lot more supplemental light. So you're gonna need something like a supermoon, or you're gonna need an IR floodlight or weapon light, or you're gonna be using your IR nav light on here a lot. So when it comes to a force on force near peer conflict, if you're going up against other night vision users, you're gonna be at a serious disadvantage. You are. But for other applications, they're really good, but we'll get into that in a second. But if you do find a good pair of these things for really cheap, you absolutely can still hang out with the boys on little night walks and do goon stuff, right? No, not that kind of gooning. Only thing is you're probably going to be backlighting them a lot and streaking their tubes, and they're going to be like, hey, shut that off. And you're like, oh, well, I can't see. And then you're going to be like holding the hands the whole time. It's a really good bonding experience for sure. So in my opinion, these do a fine job when you're going up against an enemy who does not possess night vision. And by that, I mean hunting, right? These things, you can absolutely use them to hunt predators and stop coyotes from eating your chickens. So if you don't have to worry about your light signature, go crazy, you know? With enough supplemental light, if you've got like a Key or a Surefire Vampire, you can literally just get one of those like cheap little Amazon IR floodlights and just like tape it to your gun and just leave it constant on and just keep scanning. So you can absolutely go hog hunting with these. They're just going to be a real pain. But unfortunately, these are really no longer a budget solution. These things really went up in price recently. I think it's because Nocturne Industries is putting these into better 3D printed housings. And the thing is, you know, I'm absolutely not saying that, you know, Nocturne can't do that. But just personally, in my opinion, you know, I just have a soft spot in my heart for these things. And it really hurts me to see these things get molested. I think they've got a lot of character to them. But, you know, maybe I'm a hypocrite because, you know, I do like the lit and cob mounts. But I guess I'm just a little bit of a purist like that. So that is going to be it for the PVS-5 Alphas. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys appreciate these things a little bit more. I hope you learned something. I hope everyone has a really awesome Halloween. Head on over to Venture Surplus, start building out your own Ghostbusters or Stargate kit. I'm sure they got some stuff on there to throw together a last-minute costume for yourself. But thank you guys again. The moral of this video really is, just because something's old doesn't mean it's bad. I really want people to understand and respect what was so that you can better appreciate what we have now. So thank you guys again, and have a spooky Halloween.